and welcome to the podcast. Today we have with us Mark Debenham from Adverity. Mark, great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, Gareth. Very pleased to be here. Looking forward to talking with you on this new show as well.
No worries. Yeah. So if you don't mind, we'll dive straight into the questions, which you've had beforehand. Just if you could tell us a little bit about your business and what you do within the company.
Yeah, sure. So Adverity is a data platform for marketing and analyst teams. We help businesses make better decisions and improve their performance by automating how they integrate and govern and manage their data. So I think really like at the crux of what we do is that we tackle one of the biggest challenges, not just in marketing, but that businesses have, which is data fragmentation. Do you think of it this way through like there's so many different sources of data available to anyone in the marketing space or the ad space, and it's they all have their own data, which means they all have a problem because they treat it slightly differently. So I always think of it as kind of like a jigsaw puzzle where you've got all different pieces that don't quite fit, and they're all in different rooms in your house, and you can't quite get that overall picture. So what we really do is for marketers and businesses that rely on so many different platforms, we bring that all together and make sure that that picture is accurate and trends can be found, and it's also actionable as well. So I'd say it's creating like a trusted and automated data foundation that businesses can rely on to save them time. Um, and my role at Adverity is that I lead the growth marketing side and the marketing operations side of the business, which means that I focus on pipeline generation for new business, as well as expansion for existing business as well. Our positioning and our demand strategy, as well as all the operations. So everything that connects all of that so that we can scale and grow even faster, utilizing new tools and staying up with trends in the industry.
Amazing. It's really interesting because obviously I think within the advertising industry and ad tech in particular, there's quite a lot of fragmentation. And I think that came about in the 2010s when there was just a proliferation of platforms. And we talked about this on previous episodes of this podcast, actually, in terms of how that in itself came about, which was the fragmentation of media, because effectively with the advent of the internet, almost everybody became a publisher. And so obviously you have the platforms for the users to actually generate the content, and then you've got to find a way to basically advertise across all of those platforms, hence technology, which sits on top of that. And then obviously you had multiple of those technology platforms. So coming up in the media space from an ad agency and a programmatic sort of point of view, it was insane to see the proliferation of platforms and see then tech companies like yourselves come in and basically sort of take on that challenge. Is quite refreshing, really, because it's a big headache that I think a lot of people in the media space and programmatic space have, is basically aggregating their data. And it seems like, because
Yeah.
you've got multiple platforms, you've got multiple systems, you have to basically marry that up and find the narrative to then give to your clients.
Oh, definitely. Like I'm sort of trying to stop myself from opening up a tab to Google the name of it, but there's a there's an infographic. Do you know the one I mean, of like the MarTech space with just the thousands and thousands of logos?
Yeah, the
Can't remember
Lunascape,
when that
I think it
started.
is.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like yeah, and it gets added to every year. And this is the thing, like they all interpret data in a slightly different way, have different metrics. So bringing all of those pieces together and making it consistent and accurate is, that's why like our position in the space is so important, because someone needs to do that. And obviously I'm biased, but I think we're the best at it, and a lot of our clients would agree.
Cool. And obviously, there's that. So there's the data aggregation piece, connecting all your platforms up. But then, what are the additional sort of key features that make Adverity stand out? Then.
Yeah, so I'd say it's not just aggregating all of it, it's getting it consistent, like transforming it and doing all of that at scale. So I'd say the main things about Adverity, and again, like I said, I'm quite kind of biased, but I'm also very honest when it comes to this, is that I think it's just the power of our platform and the flexibility and the automation around that so that things can scale. So, as I said, like maybe some of your listeners will say, yeah, well, of course you'd say that, but I'd kick myself if I didn't take this opportunity on your show to share some of our coolest and most powerful features. So, I'm gonna so I think, first of all, the one that I really have to say is just that, like, we spoke about that diagram, that infographic of all the different sources that are available to a marketer. And I'd say like our integration and our connectivity between all of those is just phenomenal. Like we have connections to over 600 of them, and we're adding to them all the time, building new ones. So these pre-built connectors across marketing, sales, finance, and just so many kind of important business data sources. And our universal connect feature means that we can connect to pretty much anywhere. Like nothing in the space can really escape us, and there's very little that's beyond our means. So I'd definitely say that's one of them. But on top of that, I think also like with so much data and drowning in, someone can be drowning in so much data, businesses can be drowning in data, but they're still thirsty for that insight as well. So I think another thing that sets us apart from other players in the field is just the quality monitoring that we offer in our platform and the data governance. So, like, unlike other ETL tools, we have built-in data governance to really do things like automatically surface stuff like anomaly detection. Like if there's anything strange in your data that can throw you off into the wrong direction and end up with very poor, inaccurate insights, as well as quality checks. So so those are really things that like help establish trust in your data across teams and across the whole business. Um, Also, I mentioned a little bit before that like the data transformation side of things, like they all have so different ways of like interpretations of data. Like you can't expect all of them to necessarily, go to the beat of the same drum. So what we do in our platform that I think sets us apart as well is that we automate that data mapping, that consistency between them, the blending and how that data is structured. And on top of that, we've got AI powered transformations. And that makes it very easy to go from having a raw data set to actually finding those actionable insights without like all the manual work that's involved of going between those different spreadsheets. So just to carry on from that jigsaw analogy, like going to different rooms, trying to make these different bits fit together to actually get an accurate picture. And then on top of that, I'd also say just like, the I mentioned a bit about data governance, but also I think like the access, like the democratization, like not making, breaking down the silos that exist between teams. So yes, you need to have governance around that, but also different teams in a business need access to that data. And I think one of our strengths is that we work seamlessly with a lot of business intelligence tools as well, like Power BI and Tableau. So it really, I think, gives teams full control over where and how they use their data across the business. Um, and then the last point I'd really say is like going back to the thing I mentioned before about the power of our platform. Like as businesses collect more data and they scale, you need to have robust processes to really make sure that things like don't break and fall over. Um, so scalability and automation, I'd say, is something else that sets us apart from others. People can scale their operations efficiently with us, and minimize those repetitive tasks of having to like just, copy the exact piece of work you did elsewhere, like being able to being able to clone your previous work and reduce time spent on trying to wrangle that data and get it into some sort of, scalable format that you can actually act quickly on the market. I think that's another thing that sets us apart. I could do a whole episode on that, but those are like my top ones, I think.
Yeah, maybe we should break that out. We could do like a mini series on features.
I'm
um,
here for it. Yeah, definitely.
you mentioned AI and how that's
Mm.
basically. It seems like you're using it to pull insights from basically mountains of data. It seems that's the sort of angle you guys have taken on it. But correct me if I'm wrong there. Is that like the main use for AI in your platform?
I'd say it's more like a step before that. Like like you know, I mentioned about having a strong data foundation, right? Um, so I'd say it's more being able to get that data in a format and a structure that actually means those insights are accurate elsewhere. So a lot of that work might happen in like another tool, like you know, a business intelligence tool, for example. What's so important is having that foundation before, because you'll just go off in the wrong direction completely to get those pieces to fit together. So for us, it's more about getting that data consistent and accurate. So that's where we use AI. So it's more a step before that, making sure, like there's an analogy that often I can't remember it, but it's been used a lot. I've seen it played around in a few different places where they talk about like a plane taking off, and if it doesn't have its coordinates correct at the beginning, like by a couple of degrees, rather than ending up in like London, you know, rather than ending up in like Paris, it'll end up in like Hawaii or something like that because something was off at the beginning. So, like, with so many data sources and different interpretations of data and metrics, really trying to make it consistent, you know, across all of that. That's where we use AI. So, like for us, like both in our business and for our clients, and we work with different agencies as well as brands directly in the space. Um, and artificial intelligence for us is playing a practical but also high impact role in how we help businesses clean, structure, and collaborate on data more efficiently. So we all use artificial intelligence not just to help automate processes, but also to make it accessible, make the data accessible to others and also actionable because we know that it's a trusted, solid data foundation, while still maintaining a structured and governed environment for that data. So one of the features that our clients love is that's made a real impact for them, a positive one, is a feature called Transformation Copilot. So that's an AI powered assistant that helps customers transform, clean, and enrich their data quickly and easily without them needing any like previous coding knowledge or anything like that. So it gives them step by step guidance and best practice prompts so that they can like really simplify data tasks. So I've got a couple of stats for you as well from it. And the one, like so many of them about things like how many different prompts people have used since its first launch. But the one that really stands out to me is that 75% of our users who've used Transformation Copilot have then gone on to create a transformation. And the reason why I'm really proud of that is that that says to me that they're using the prompts to try and do something to transform the data, get it consistent, um, and they're actually then going on to do it. So it's fulfilling their request each time. And what's so great to hear about that is that it means that they're spending less time on going through documentation, like trying to find the answer. They're just able to put the prompts in, and there you go. It's transformed straight away without having to use any kind of like, you know, slightly counterintuitive language or anything. Oh, actually, the name for this is that, or the format's that. It's a much easier way to do it. That's like a real much lower barrier to entry on that side of things.
Amazing. So we've heard a little bit about how you're implementing AI in Adverity, and it seems like you're seeing results for clients, which is great. But extrapolating that to the broader ad tech industry, how do you think AI is going to change the industry over the next few years?
Yeah, so like I think it's moving very quickly. So I always worry that any commentary about it, you know, it's going to be out of date in a few weeks or months anyway, because things are moving at such a breakneck speed. But I think the most meaningful changes are likely to be in two areas. So one of them I'd say is just more specialized AI powered solutions, which we're already seeing, and I think it's going to go up a notch. There's like fewer and fewer one size fits all solutions and platforms, and instead I think we'll see a continuation of the trend in targeted AI driven tools that solve very specific marketing and analytics challenges. And I think another thing that will go up a notch isn't just the proliferation of those tools, but also I think the user experience. I think the bar is increasing so much on that side of things. And all of that just sort of to reduce manual effort as well. Um, and I'd say the other side of things would really be artificial intelligence, more so performing the role on the execution layer. Like there's so many great quotes from other people on this, about how things like, AI isn't going to take your job, or anything like that, but it's not going to take your job, but it's going to give you a better one. Or people saying things like, oh, I don't want AI to generate, poetry or artwork for me. I want it to do all the manual tasks so I have time to spend on that other side of things. So I think I think there'll be more of an increase, not so much in artificial intelligence being used for insights. I think it'd be more like artificial intelligence running some of these key processes so that there's still the human element, has more time to focus on what artificial intelligence isn't quite at the level to do yet and what audiences still expect. But the empathy side of things, getting more of like the sort of key strategic context. So I think we'll see AI sort of continue to like optimize sort of more of the like manual processes, let's say whether that's like bidding strategies, like much of what's already happening. I think that will go on to a high level. And of course, there will still be some of that creative empathy side of things starting to happen more from AI, like continuing, writing things like ad copy and some data analysis. But I still think that it will be more, we'll see it more continue on the execution side of things. And there'll still be that space so that people have time freed up to focus more on that connection with audiences instead. Um, so I'd say it's more like the industry. I think it will continue to shift from like AI assisted workflows to more AI powered execution instead on some of those kind of more like manual processes.
Very interesting. Yeah, I think that side of things is moving quite quickly. I mean, we were discussing this on a previous podcast as well, because obviously, we've been working on sort of the media buying side for decades, and we even in sort of 2012, there was the advent of optimization algorithms, which
Mm,
sort of purported to do a lot of what, for example, like a media trader or a media buyer or a PPC expert would do. And we found that obviously back then they were fairly limited in terms of their application, especially within campaigns. So we found that, for example, it was good to use an algorithm on a long tail of on the long tail of keywords, for example, in paid search as it was at the time, but also maybe your bidding strategies, across programmatic. Managing a long tail of thousands of sites is not really possible from a manual point of view. But then, sort of segmenting
mm,
that out, we could have the media trader sort of focus more on, the top few sites, building that relationship with those publishers, and then the algorithms would optimize across the long tail. But we're seeing more and more that the algorithms now are adopting. Are taking more and more of that, and effectively, for example, like the reporting side of things as well, like you said, about gleaning insights, putting together and pulling reports, all of those sorts of things with tools like yours is becoming just so much quicker for media
mm,
teams. So again, that's freeing up their time then to focus on delivering more strategic value for clients. And like I say,
mm.
like building those relationships with top tier publishers and all of the things that we want to do to sort of give a competitive edge to our clients. So yeah, AI is really sort of progressing in that space. It's interesting to watch. So you talked a bit about sort of the availability of AI features in your platform, but what are the quickest wins for clients wanting to implement AI in the space, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I'd probably say I'd probably say it's starting small first and looking at that foundation just to make sure that you're not going off in the wrong direction later on. Um so really focusing on that data foundation and using AI like using artificial intelligence at that stage to really like automate that data consolidation and cleaning um, because I think a lot of marketers and data professionals they spend so much time like manually pulling data and standardizing it. And if it was only for like the results to then kind of throw up something that's very inaccurate because that foundation wasn't solid, it just makes the problem doubly worse. So I think the quickest win would really be like using artificial intelligence to make sure that foundation is robust enough to support whatever a business wants to build later on. Um, so I'd say like like a couple of the quickest wins then would be once you've automated some of the building that foundation. I'd say it's really the next best step would be to not chase any of the latest trends. Just focus on getting that data clean and trustworthy, uniform across your business, because you can't optimize what you can't trust, and you definitely can't scale it, or it's very dangerous if you're going to. Um, and then I'd just really sort of say to go from there. It just really starts with clean data. Like I was mentioning about the plane, if its coordinates, the data it has there isn't right, you just go off in a completely different direction. And you can't blame the AI tool at that point because that's what it was being fed. So I'd say, like, just very simple, use AI to collect all those different jigsaw pieces, just to go back to that jigsaw analogy, collect all those different pieces, get it all uniform so things actually fit together, and then you've got a picture at the end that matches, that matches what's on the front of the box.
Very good. So it's about getting that foundational layer right with your data sets, leveraging AI, and then the rest will sort of naturally come, I guess. But you can't do anything
Mm.
without that sort of foundational layer.
Definitely, yeah, and you'll have more time to focus on those insights, which I think is probably, a lot of the people who have an interest in marketing data or business data in general and want to analyze it and get, still that march. Like I think that's probably what drives a lot of them, having more time to focus on those insights and seeing what the overall picture and trend is, rather than spending time kind of, correcting data or kind of harnessing it from different places. So I think, it's definitely freeing up some of their time to focus on, where I imagine most people's passion is and where they can have the most positive impact in their teams and for their business.
Definitely, definitely. We talk a lot about AI, but outside of that, what are the other trends that you're seeing in this space that clients should be aware of?
Yeah, so beyond AI, I'd say I'd say really kind of more of like sort of close merging of creative and data sort of coming together. We quite often think of data as being numbers and creative as being, kind of colors. So I think those two are merging more closely together and supporting one another. um like performance driven creative is becoming, I think, more of a I think it's becoming more of like a game changer in the industry. So like, for example, I mentioned it a little bit before, like automated ad personalization. Like there's still, how can you personalize for an audience at scale? Audiences are very much aware that that a lot of things are, on the very basic level, we're used to getting emails with our name on them. We know that there's not someone, who's writing to Mark or to Gareth at the start of that email. We know that that's using tech to do that, but we still get angry if it's not there, right? If there's no personalization, like we still expect a tailored experience. So I think, like, that trend, I think, is going to go up a notch, using data to really, like, to take creative up a level and, really enhance personalization. um, I'd probably say, so that's one, like the blending of both those worlds. And then I'd say the other is really like marketing and business intelligence sort of getting closer together. More teams are integrating marketing, sales, and operational data to get like that kind of full view, that full picture, like that full jigsaw puzzle I was talking about. And I think that will continue because I think it's in businesses' interests, because so they're all actually, pulling in the same direction and operating from consistent data, rather than one department saying, well, our data says this, another department saying ours says this. So I think we'll generally see like that would be more of like an internal sort of shift. So yeah, just to recap on that, I think one of them externally, that creative, creative and data side kind of working together to meet that audience demand for personalization at scale, to feel like, still feel like you're getting that experience, like you're seeing an old friend again, even though it's from a brand. And then the other side, I think, internally, these different departments kind of having that need to merge and kind of not so much merge, but collaborate on a more uniform data set and needing tools to help them do that.
Definitely. It's that breaking down of silos bit that you mentioned earlier there, I think, isn't it? And
Mm,
tools like yours enable sort of clients to do that more effectively. And it's very interesting you mention the interplay of data with creative, because that's something we're very involved with here with dynamic creative
mm,
optimization. Obviously, again, those tools have been around for a while, but again, with AI, you're seeing like even more potential there. The one thing I would say is we're seeing some challenge with on that is client sign off, because obviously, while you could have a different variation for almost every impression that you serve, obviously the client has to be happy with it. And where you've
yeah,
got AI, for example, something we're exploring at the moment, having AI in that equation is a probabilistic model. So, it could always spit something out that maybe the client wouldn't be happy with. So we're trying to figure out, where's the sweet spot for that? Because obviously it enables us to generate a lot more personalized content for our ads, but then obviously it's the client does have to have oversight. So yeah, that's a challenge we're actually actively working on, which is interesting you bring it up. Um,
yeah.
but
It's kind of like an accountability issue as well, isn't it? Because of what it throws up. You almost kind of have to treat it as an extra viewpoint, an extra person at the table, sort of giving you other ideas rather than kind of being like, yep, we'll just leave it all in the power of the robots.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, and like you say, is like because it's a probabilistic model, because you
Mm.
can't be 100% certain. And yeah, I think that sort of I think there's still some work to do in that space there, but it's quite exciting. In terms of what's coming up for you guys in 2025 and beyond, what's on your roadmap? What's on the horizon that you can talk about?
Yeah, so some of the things are what I mentioned before is like in that foundation, sort of building lots of cool and powerful features to for people to interact with that data and get it how they need it to be in more of like a conversational format. So that's one which there'll be more coming out about that soon. Again, like sort of reducing some of the friction as well, like the gatekeeping of data, like when we spoke about teams being in silos. So continue to build features to focus on that. And again, the data quality and the controls around that, sort of using artificial intelligence again to like establish the trust in that, so that our clients can sort of continue to know that they can still rely on that data even as they scale operations, because we know they rely on that because it's something that we can do that so many other that most other companies can't really. So yeah, definitely still like kind of focusing on the people being able to have conversations with their data within the tool. Like yeah, more on the data quality side of things, and also that flexibility as well, um, where they can send their data to different places that they need it for different teams. So very much like an audience centric vision that we have for the rest of the year.
Very cool, very cool. So we normally just finish off the podcast with a few quick fire questions. What's your favourite brand in the ad tech space, apart from obviously Adverity and
So
us?
I'm gonna have to cheat. Yeah, yeah. So I'm yeah, Adverity and Audience Store, only brands that begin with an A.
Yeah,
So I think I'm gonna have to cheat. I think I'm gonna have to cheat on this one, not just because we connected to so many different ones, but I probably can't just take one brand or just one company. So I'm gonna have to cheat definitely on this answer. So I'd say it's just any brand, any ad tech company that just really prioritizes transparency in their data, right? So like sometimes you quite often see different metrics pop up and you're like, what does this mean? I'm being inundated with different metrics. There's a bit of analysis paralysis, and you think, is this the most important one or not? So I'd have to just cheat on this one and say any brand that prioritizes that transparency and access to the data and how it's formulated exactly, just so that you can still arrive at that solid data foundation that I mentioned.
you can actually get the
Um,
insight from it.
yeah, I think like in the long run, I think that's what brands need. That they just need that clarity to make sure they're going off in the right direction. So they need to know exactly what is, what that data is, what's being measured, what isn't. So I just say definitely any brand that prioritizes transparency, really. So of which, I'm sure there are many that do.
Very good. So, skip question.
Mhm.
Next, an individual in the space you'd like to give a shout out to, and why?
Kind of cheat again. I'm going to mention two.
Yeah, of
Um,
course. Yeah.
so Okay, so one person that I'd like to mention is someone that I've just discovered recently. A guy called Kyle Bulmer. I think that's how his surname is pronounced. Balmer. So I was like scrolling on TikTok, and I just saw him come up on my feed, and he gives a lot of practical advice on artificial intelligence and a lot of thoughtful commentary about what's happening in AI, like what's happening in the news with it. So that's something that's really stood out to me because like I found myself applying a lot of what he says. He also like particularly around things like the Risen model, RISEN, for how to structure prompts. Um so like a lot of his advice there, just very practical, really, really helpful. So he's someone that I'd recommend. I think I found him on TikTok, but I think he's on most platforms. Um, there's also another person, kind of, she's called Cat GPT, I think. I think she's on TikTok. So
Good
sorry,
name.
I'm actually cheating. Rather than going from two, I'm going to three. And then more like generally in the space, I'd say like I kick myself if I didn't mention Scott Brinker as well. So I think Scott Brinker's done more than anyone to really kind of decode the complexity of marketing technology as well and help people understand how technology helps shape marketing. I think he's often quite ahead of like the curve as well on a lot of things, and he's obviously an influential voice. I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with.
Very good, very good. Some useful shout outs there. I'll be searching for them after to try and get some tips. And we finish off on the number one lesson you've learned in your career.
Yeah, so in terms of like specifically, like in the ad tech sort of space, I'd say it's really just like data without context is just noise. So many people and companies are just used to chasing metrics that make them look good. And I think what isn't necessarily needed is, it's not about getting more data, it's about how you use it and having the context around that and creating a story around that so you can actually identify trends rather than just sort of being bombarded with numbers. So I think we've never had more data than before. So as I mentioned before, like sometimes it can feel like we're drowning in data, but we're still thirsty for insights.
Yeah,
So I'd say having the context is really kind of what helps prioritize certain metrics above others. So and see what's undiscovered, what's underutilized, and what should be focused on.
very good. So focus. Context is key, and drawing
Mm.
insight from data is the most important. Rather than drowning in it. Very good. We've had some really good insights here, Mark. Thank you very much for your time. It's really, really good to have you on.
Thanks, Gareth.
No worries. Catch up soon.